simplest of terms, I would say smart growth is focusing development on existing areas with existing infrastructure and existing transportation. Without the underlying development, we don't have the money to invest in schools. We don't have the money to invest in neighborhood parks. We don't have the money to expand parks. We don't have the money to continue to maintain our infrastructure.
I just wanted to stop the group.
We have people not only in the United States but from around the world come to visit us to see how we did it, how we've applied the principles of smart growth in Arlington. The principles are applicable elsewhere. Arlington's been doing it long before we called it smart growth. 40 years ago, Arlington came up with a vision. That vision was to focus growth in about 11% of the county, 2 corridors, to focus high-density, mixed-use development within a quarter mile of the 2 metro systems, to preserve the remaining 89% of the county between single-family garden apartments and the open space that was out there, and then to define hard edges to the existing single-family areas, for the most part, that were on either side of the corridors, and then to provide transitions to those. We set a land use plan in place that said what the board's desired general uses and densities were. We set those lines. I've been here for 30 years, and I can't think of many times, if any, that those lines have been blurred over those 30 years. So it's not to say that there aren't impacts and some tension on those edges. That is one of the issues we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But those edges have been maintained. And I think that's because we put the vision in place, we stuck to it, and we've had consistent political will to hold those lines. Development always has issues associated with it. I would say that focus on smart growth is actually a focus on trying to minimize or manage those issues. The tensions that we see in Arlington are not so much the result of smart growth as they are the result of growth at all. And I would say that most of the challenges we face would be worse if we hadn't focused development where we've developed it. We've been able to avoid being choked by traffic. Arlington is between Fairfax County, which has 1.1 million people living in it, and one of the larger counties in the United States, and the District of Columbia. So people are traveling through Arlington a lot, both by transit but also by automobiles. We are really part of the region's urban core. We are at the foot of 3 main bridges into the District of Columbia. Regional traffic, if you will continue to grow. And where that goes will be a fundamental issue for Arlington. I think Arlington has the planning in place to address that. We've also got programs in place to address that. We have neighborhood traffic calming programs, which I would say are focused as much on keeping the regional traffic out as they are the local traffic out. So I think the regional traffic is the issue for Arlington. It's not just about Metro. We have really developed a transportation system, not a commuter rail system. We have a lot of options that are available to people, and I think that's what really helps in terms of local transportation. It's walking, biking, car sharing, art bus, the metro system. Those are things that we've continued to do. So one of our goals of our early planning was to emphasize transit over roads, and Arlington has fought for that for a long time, and we've been very successful. We have changed behaviors. People don't bring cars with them, or are willing to have one car versus two. 19% of the people who live in the Brosnan corridor owned no cars. 39% of those people who live in the Brosnan corridor take transit to work. So that's a lot of people that aren't in cars, aren't congesting our streets. That's what amazes people, I think, to think that we have these millions of square feet and 30,000 units of housing in the Brosnan corridor, and traffic, in fact, has gone down over the years. The early focus on roads over people has changed, so now I would argue that we have a higher level of focus on pedestrians and bicycles than we do on accommodating automobiles. So I think we've seen some behavioral changes. The edges will always be an issue, both from where are the edges and a constant concern about the edges creeping, but life at the edges can be a little messy too. And we try to manage that as well. But there's a lot of restaurants, a lot of live entertainment, a lot of things that people want to partake in our development corridors, yet the bleeding over of the impacts of that into the neighborhoods are an issue to be managed, and I think that is one of our challenges. There is no doubt that growth brings about construction-related issues, and that's something I hear about pretty much all the time. That's temporary, but there are issues with that. Affordable housing is a very big issue. I think it's the same with affordable local retail. We have high-density, fairly high-expensive development corridors. We've got rings of single-family neighborhoods ranging from very large, expensive units to smaller, expensive units. And then we have a wide array of garden apartments that provide our affordable housing and rental housing opportunities. Those are, I think, the future of our kind of challenges that we face, if you will, is how do we protect those? We are the only jurisdiction in the state of Virginia that has authority for mandatory inclusion of affordable housing into development projects. Everybody else, it's optional. Ours is mandatory. Open space, I think we didn't do a very good job on anticipating our open space and our active recreation needs. I think we haven't done in the past as good a job as we should have and in anticipation of what our recreation needs are. So that's something that I think was not in a success checkbox, if you will. One of the things that I'm kind of happiest about, if you will, is my kids and their friends as they graduate from college. Arlington's the place they want to be. I don't know. I didn't see that we'd be that successful in creating a place that people wanted to come to. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of what Arlington has done.